I am Brett Underhill, and I work for Calder College. Downstairs coming in, you might have seen Mrs. Schultz and Ms. Sharp. Those are two more of our staff members. We have a total of 9 staff members in the office right now. And our goal really is to help your students find their way through high school and to college. We help with a lot of different aspects of the process, and primarily people know us because of the financial assistance. So just a little bit about that. Some of the services that we provide to families will include events like this, where we provide information about the financial aid process. We will assist you with the process of filing the FAFSA and interpreting and reading and understanding financial aid packages, and of course awarding our last dollar grant. And I'll talk a little bit about that too here towards the end. Now, we've been into all of the junior English classes in the last week or two and kind of delivered some information to students. And I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. So I don't have a whole lot to hand out. If your students didn't bring those papers home, I brought a few of those. You can take them with you as you're leaving. We know students and how they work, or specifically how they don't work sometimes, right? So again, I brought a few of those with me if your student didn't bring it home. But I'd like to actually turn it over right now to Mr. Coble, who is one of our school counselors here at Newark High School, and give him an opportunity to talk a little bit about how the school counseling office is going to interact with your students this year.
Thanks, Mr. Underhill.
Mm-hmm.
So each of you should have received a packet. Quite honestly, it's a bit of a mishmash of information, but I just wanted to make sure that we were giving you information that I think is helpful on a number of topics. Newark High School Counseling Department, we have 4 school counselors, including myself. We are divided by alphabet range. So Mrs. Stayer has the first part of the alphabet. I have DE through KI. Mr. Johnston has the third part of the alphabet, and then Mrs. Lott has the last part of the alphabet. I included our contact information. If anything comes up that you have a question about or you need some assistance, we're here to help not only with college and career aspects, but also academic issues that may be happening. We can be a good first contact, and also social emotional issues, whether those are happening here at school or if there's something going on at home that you want us to be aware of and provide your son or daughter with a little extra support. That's what we're here for. Junior year, we went into the English classes with a Calder College, and I will tell you our main point of emphasis for junior year is for students to do everything they can in their power to bolster their GPA, to make sure they're taking challenging coursework for themselves, and that's going to vary a little bit by student. But when students apply to college in their senior year, that junior year is going to factor in heavily. So just to do everything they can to do their best junior year. Also, colleges are going to look at the whole person. So not only grades and test scores, but also making sure the student is involved. So if they've been involved in sports clubs, extracurricular activities in the past, we certainly encourage them to continue with that. If perhaps that's an area they can improve on, maybe looking to add an activity club or sport junior year. Social media. School Counseling Department, on the front of the packet, you will notice we have a Facebook page that we started this year, so I encourage you to like that. And we're going to be putting out updates and reminders and trying to highlight some of the positive things that students are doing around here. So I encourage you to like that. And then also, if you're a Twitter person, we have a department Twitter account that we will also be sending out updates and reminders with. PSAT. Counseling Department will be offering the PSAT on October 11th. The PSAT is the practice version of the SAT. And so that's a good opportunity for students to get additional practice with a standardized test. Junior year does carry with it the possibility of scholarships through the National Merit Scholarship Program. You have to score very, very well for that, but that possibility does exist. I included information on college rep sessions and college visit days in the packet. We have a number of representatives from various colleges and universities that visit Newark High School. And so juniors and seniors have the opportunity to sign up and meet with those representatives, especially because junior year is kind of an exploratory year. I think most students are pretty open as to which schools they have in mind at this point, so highly encourage students to sign up for at least a couple of those. The last sheet of the packet includes the visits that we already have set up, the college rep visits that are already set up. We will be adding to this list, but that just gives you an idea of some of the schools that we have scheduled already. Students can sign up for those college rep visits by stopping down to the counseling office or signing up on a website called Naviance. If your student is not on the Naviance website, that's okay. One of us school counselors can help with that, and we're also going to be orienting students to the website later in the year. But either they can sign up through Naviance or they can stop down to the counseling office. Also, campus visits. Students are allotted 2 excused days for college visits for junior year, and then 2 additional days for senior year. So the school certainly supports students and parents visiting colleges and universities. There is a process to that, so you can read up on that. Basically, it involves writing a note, bringing that into the attendance secretary, and then there's a form that goes along with that. All right, I also included information on honors diploma and valedictorian salutatorian. We get that information out to students. So honors diploma, generally speaking, is for students that have a 3.5 GPA or higher. They need to be mindful of the coursework that they are signing up for. And then valedictorian, salutatorian, we're typically talking 4.0 or higher. And again, there's certain coursework that students need to make sure they sign up for to be eligible for that. So if students, parents have questions on that, we can certainly help, but this was just another way to get that information out. I think that's about all I have for this evening. I'm going to stick around after the meeting, so if you have additional questions after the meeting, would be more than happy to answer. Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to give you a little bit more information about Acolda College at this point. So Acolda College has been around for 26 years. I'm actually celebrating my 20th Newark High School reunion this weekend. So when I was a student here, Acolda College was here. It was much smaller then, but I was a beneficiary of the program. It's been thriving and growing since then, so we are now working with students in 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, 9th, 11th, 12th grade, as well as alumni coming back for help. So we do a lot of stuff, and we've been working with your students for many, many years now. It's really exciting to see them coming up through the high school. So as I mentioned, we were in the junior English classes last week, and we introduced our programming and specifically what we do for the juniors. So one of the more recent developments in our program in the last 10 years or so is a volunteer advisory program. We have community members who come to Acolda College who want good things for Newark High School students, want to see them go to college, and want to be able to help them along their path. So we invite every Newark High School junior who wants to participate to sign up and come to our office 3 times during their junior year, and then they have the opportunity to sign up again during their senior year for 3 more visits. And our advisors are trained by us. We believe very strongly in what they do, and we have a lot of confidence in them. In addition to our advising program, we work a lot with your juniors to help them prepare for and take the ACT. Last year, the state of Ohio made it mandatory for every junior in the state of Ohio to take either an ACT or an SAT, and New York City schools chose the ACT as their test, which is fantastic for us because we've been helping students prepare for the ACT for many years. And so we are going to be doing some things with your students. One of the forms we gave to your students last week is a calendar of events that we're holding. And I'm going to hold that up right now. So it's a purple paper like this. Your students should have received a folder like this. And I see some parents that are kind of going like this. Okay, so ask your student for their Call to College folder. I'm sure all of those documents are just shoved right in there. But one of them is this little calendar of events that we've got going on. And I want you to kind of take a look at that and pay attention because we've got some really great things planned for your juniors this year. The ACT is a big test. It's a long test. It's not an easy test. But we believe that it's a valuable test. It is a rite of passage for every student who's thinking about going on to college. So we want students to start preparing for it. So taking the time to understand what the test is, how the questions are asked, and to actually work on studying for the test. We will conduct a full-length practice ACT in January. One of the best ways you can prepare for the ACT is to sit down and take it, to know what to expect when you sit down and take it for real. So we will conduct a full-length practice ACT. We will score the test. We will give the test back with the answers that your student provided and what they got wrong, what they got right, with a score. So they can have a benchmark of where they are now and what they need to do to prepare for the test that's in March. In addition to our practice test, we will run an ACT Lunch and Learn event where students can come to the Media Center here at the high school and sit down with usually teachers who are giving up their time to do a little bit of small group study with your students to help them learn how to study for the English section of the ACT, how to study for the math section, the reading section, the science section, etc. Okay? And they'll do this in small group events. We also will bring in an ACT test prep professional from Columbus. BWS Education Consulting will come in, and on President's Day this year, they will conduct a turbo camp. This is kind of one of our best attended events. It is incredibly valuable. To participate in an event like this on your own would cost you around $300. A Call to College is bringing in Brian Stewart or one of his tutors. We are paying for it. Your student can go for free. We do ask, because we have such limited space on this one particular event, we can hold up to 35 students. We do ask that students who wish to participate in this event bring us a $25 deposit. We will hold that check until the day of the event. Students who show up will get their check back, and it'll end up costing them nothing. Okay? Don't get out your checkbooks right now. We are not prepared to start taking deposits for the ACT Turbo Camp. In December, just before students go home for the holiday break, we will have Newark High School alumni, recipients of our last dollar grant, come back to Newark High School and talk with your students about their own college experience. And part of that process, we will be talking to your students in more detail about our ACT events. And at that point, after that day, if students would like to bring in their deposit for the Turbo Camp, they can do it then. But at this point, we're not prepared. We're not ready to start taking those deposits. But I want you to be aware of it because it's a big event. It's a fun event. It's all day long on President's Day I know most students are thinking about sleeping in until the crack of noon on those days they have no school, but we would like them to do something productive. Okay? So, Turbo Camp. And then Brian Stewart will come back and do a boosters event, so kind of a shorter, slightly less intense version of his Turbo Camp. He'll do that here during school on just a couple of days before the actual ACT day. So a lot of things for your students to prepare for the ACT. They may even find out in some of their English classes or science classes about our online test prep program. So we contract with New York City Schools. We purchase an online ACT test prep program called Method Test Prep. Students will be able to get a username and password and start logging in and doing a little bit of practice on that every night here very soon. Okay. And then, more immediately, some things that we've got coming up for your students are some college campus visits. So we are going to be doing a college campus visit on November 9th. That visit will be to either OSU Newark, COTC, or Denison University. It's your student's choice. So in their folder, they have a little pink packet. Looks like this. It talks about our 2 campus visits on that day. So kind of look for this. We do have limited space on the buses. We're only allowed to take 1 bus per campus visit. So take a look at this and try and get this in as quickly as you can. We will also be doing another campus visit on November 7th. November 7th is election day. Again, no school that day. We are going to be taking 1 bus of both juniors and seniors to Ashland University in Ashland, Ohio. It's about an hour-and-a-half drive from here. So students will be able to stop by our office and pick up a permission form if they're interested in going to Ashland. We will not put a student on the official list to go until they bring back their permission slip and a $5 fee. That $5 helps us cover the cost of transportation and a meal in the dining hall at Ashland, which I understand is in the top 10 dining halls in the country and has nationally ranked cookies, something like that. I know I'm looking forward to that day myself. And then on September 25th, we'll be taking nearly the entire junior class to the Kiwanis College Fair in Columbus. It's at COSI this year. It's an opportunity for students to interact face-to-face with college admissions counselors and ask questions about their school and find out a little bit more about some places where they may want to think about applying. So again, in their Call to College folder is this permission form to go to the Kiwanis College Fair. For all of our field trips, students must have turned in their emergency medical authorization forms. So if you've not done that yet, make sure you get that in. I also understand that the form that they're supposed to turn in for field trips is different from any athletic emergency medical forms. So if you did one for athletics and you think you're fine, I'm going to encourage you to double check with the nurse's office here at the high school and make sure you have an EMA on file. Okay, any questions about that? Fantastic. Then I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Molly Bauman. I love it when Molly comes here to talk to our students. She's fantastic. She is a financial aid counselor from Capital University, and she's just a joy to have here every year. So here's Molly.
Thank you very much. I would like to say just from the beginning, not only was that a very nice introduction, but I wish every community had an organization like Call to College. I see the benefit that our students get with those dollars coming in and helping out, but more importantly, just listening to this every year, all the prep work that is given to your students in their junior year, in their senior year, giving those opportunities to go on college visits, it is unique, to say the least. So please encourage your students to take advantage of it. Not everybody has that, and it really can make a difference. I will tell you too, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I have 2 sons. One graduated in May. I have another in school right now who is taking a winding road through his college career. So I will tell you, take deep breaths. You will get through it. There are lots of different opportunities for students, and not everybody's going to take the same path. So just keep that in mind as you're going through this. It's wonderful as juniors. Boy, how many students do we have here? Raise your hands. Great. Thank you very much for coming, because I bet your parents drug you here. It is a great time, because right now, not only do you have an opportunity to start exploring, nothing should be off the table. There should not be a single school that you won't consider at this point, because everything's available to you. As you go through the process, you start really wide, looking at all your different choices, and then you start whittling down, because you will see, this is a better fit for me, this is a better opportunity, I like this a little bit better. Those college visits really help a lot. I took my youngest to a school 3 hours away. We drove to Pittsburgh because he really liked the school. It had the program he wanted. Some of the questions that you need to be thinking about. What do I think I might want to study? Doesn't mean you have to know right now, but be thinking about what do I want to study? Do I want to be in a large school, a medium school, a smaller school? Do I want to have a very personal contact with parents or professors? Or do I want to really sit in a hall with 500 people? Because sometimes it's better not to have that spotlight. Do you want to be within a city, outside a city? These are all the kinds of things that you want to be thinking about. So bless Colin's heart, he decided that he wanted to look at the school in Pittsburgh. I'd never been. We made the trip. We get out of the car, and he looks at me and says, yeah, this isn't going to work. We were next to my car, and he said that. And I said, well, we're going on the tour. We just drove 3 hours, and we are going to go on that tour. And by the end of the tour and having a meal in the dining hall and looking at their programs, I looked at him and said, you're right. This isn't going to work for you. It was a beautiful campus. I loved it. I thought it was awesome for me. But for him, it was not going to work at all. So doing research, looking at those schools, taking advantage of the trips, going, you've got 2 years. So it's really good, but you need to be thinking about that now. So what I'd like to do is kind of give you a start on the world of financial aid. And I will tell you there's some really great things, and there are some really wacky things out there. So I want to at least give you a base. You can use these, put them in your folders, use them as resources later on. You will get a lot more information as this year progresses, and certainly next year. But let's start with some of the basics. So on the purple form, where it talks about terminology, students, it's really important that you have vocabulary in your head while you're thinking about the financial aid piece of things. You are going to be looking at, what can I study? What does the dorms look like? Do I like, the campus feel? Your parents are going to be looking at, is it safe? Can I afford it? How far away is it? Those are the things that parents wanted. So between the two, you're going to cover a lot. But we need to have some basic vocabulary to begin with. The first thing I want to talk about is merit-based aid. And in the world of financial aid, the same topic can be called like 7 different things. So merit-based aid is the aid that's given to students based on the strength of their application. So generally, those are scholarships given from the schools, scholarships that you apply for, and they get from donors outside of a school. The really great thing is, if they're called scholarships, grants, merit aid, gift aid, whatever it's called, it's free money. That's the good thing about it. And renewable scholarships are the best, because once you get them, then you know you can count on them to renew year in and year out. I will give you something to think about. As you're looking online for those schools, and that's a great place to start. Look online, see what you can find out there. See if the school first offers scholarships. Not every school will. But if they offer scholarships, they generally will have some kind of matrix that you can go and look. I've just heard that you're going to be taking the PSAT. You're going to have the actual ACT taken. You're going to do the test prep one, the practice. So, and then the actual one. So after you do this a couple times, you're going to have a number. You're also going to have an idea of what your current cumulative GPA is. go online, find the admissions piece of things, and if there's a matrix there, you can go down the line and say, here's my GPA, here's my test score, bam, it tells me how much money I might be able to get. For students, look at that number and say, if I raise my test score 1 or 2 points, does that move you into the next block? And do you get more money by doing that? Think about that now, because you've got the opportunity to increase those scores, to do really well with your classes, and if your GPA creeps up and up again, then it translates into real dollars. So as you're looking, think about those things too. And again, those scholarships will be renewable. Find out if it's renewable for 8 semesters or renewable for 4 years. There is a difference there. If a student, for instance, gets sick and their scholarships are renewable for 8 semesters, this is something Capital does. We will put their aid on hold. If they have to take a semester off, as soon as they come back, we reinstate their aid exactly where it was and they continue on. Some schools say 4 years. So if a student would get sick under 4 years, they've now got a smaller timeline to complete their degree when they come back. That might not be a bad thing, it may not even matter, but know it ahead of time, just so that you are aware. I'm not a fan of surprises in the financial aid world. So if you know what that means going into it, it's better off. So merit-based scholarships and grants are great. Students, you can be applying for scholarships now. And on this sheet, this is a kind of a resource sheet that I put together for you. There are a number of scholarship search engines out here. Get in the habit of doing it now. Create those profiles. Put anything and everything you can think of into those profiles. Put a reminder on your phone, students, because I know you've got your phone with you all the time. So every month, look back on those websites and see if there's anything else that you can do to apply for something else. And even if you're not able to apply for it right now, if it specifically says you have to be a senior, then put it into your calendar as a reminder to go back to that at the appropriate time. You want to be able to be looking for those scholarships now. Well, there are scholarships offered to juniors as well. So go and look. If you don't do it, you know the answer is no. If you go and start looking now, you'll get in the habit and you can continue to do it. There's no reason to stop looking for scholarships even once you get into college. Keep doing that. I had a student that came to us, and this is unusual, and I will tell you, I've never had this happen before. He came with thousands of dollars of outside scholarships. And I think, and one of them, I know one of them was a $4,000 renewable, and then there were multiples of others. But it got to the point where I had to call him into my office. We cleared everything off. I spread it all out because I didn't even have enough codes built in my system because of all the scholarships. Some of them was only a $100 scholarship. And then the other ones, he got this $4,000 renewable. So we had to go through and he had to help me sort it all out. And I just looked at him and I said, John, how did you do this? This is crazy. I've never seen this before. And he said he made it a job. When he was a senior, he decided, this is something I'm just going to do. So instead of going on spring break, he was invited with friends to go on spring break. He decided he was going to stay home. He said every night, every single night he looked and more than likely applied. And he said he couldn't tell me how many scholarships he applied for. He had lost count. There was no way to know. But he applied for everything. Now, he was very determined and persistent. And not every student's going to do that. But it surely paid off for him. And he was able to have all those scholarships. So it's not impossible, but nobody's going to knock on your door and say, hey, you're going to school, here's some money, good for you. So you need to be looking for things and get in the habit of doing that. Okay. The next thing on here, the next point is need-based aid. Need-based aid is basically determined from the FAFSA. There are a lot of acronyms in the financial aid world. So FAFSA is not just somebody's last name. It actually stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So it is an application that has to be renewed every year. You reapply every year. And from this FAFSA, there's information that's determined and need is calculated. Some schools, Capital is one of them, if you file a FAFSA and there is need that is determined, then we will give you an additional scholarship. It's called a Connect grant. Other schools will do that too. So every year I generally will hear somebody tell me, we're not going to file that FAFSA, we don't qualify for financial aid anyway, so I'm just not going to do it. Well, You may, and you just don't even know it. Whether or not you decide to take whatever the federal Department of Ed offers you is one thing, but the school that your student is applying to may also offer additional scholarships or grants just because you filed that FAFSA. So it is one of those things that you want to find out. Do you have to have a FAFSA in place in order to get that university's aid? So that's important to know as well. But need-based aid, it is determined from the FAFSA. There are 3 basic types of need-based aid. One is a grant. So grant scholarships, remember that's free money. The federal Pell Grant, the Ohio College Opportunity Grant, if your student stays in Ohio, and the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant are all given based on that FAFSA calculation. And again, it is renewable every year as long as you file the FAFSA again and go through that process. If your family's income remains pretty consistent year in and year out, then if you qualify for these grants the first year, you more than likely will qualify for them every year, but you do have to go through the process. The second thing that will be offered to every student who files a FAFSA is federal student loans. And I will tell you that it's not the greatest, it doesn't have the best profile in the media, the federal student loans, but what I think that the media doesn't do is tell families that there's a limit every year on what your student can borrow through the FAFSA. It always sounds like there's this huge student loan debt and it's out there and these kids are just borrowing in so much money. And that can happen, but it's generally not just the federal loans that they're borrowing. So if this is the case, just so you're aware, as a first-year student, when they file a FAFSA, they're eligible for $5,500 in federal student loans for that academic year. That's the maximum. As a sophomore, it goes to $6,500. As a junior and senior in college, $7,500. So there are very specific limits on what a student can borrow. Good and bad. If you don't need to borrow those funds, we absolutely tell you not to borrow them. If you can do without, that is loan debt you don't have to repay later on. Students, anything that says loan on your financial aid award, that's something you have to repay. If you're going to accept it, you have to repay it. You don't have to make payments while you're in school, but you will have to make payments after you graduate. So if you don't need it, if you've worked during the summer and saved money, if you have those scholarships that are going to be able to replace loan options, those are great things. But they are there to help students, and a lot of our students take them, my own included. And that means that for me and our family, that was a little skin in the game. You know, they are taking those loans that's going to help with their education, and even though that is something that they have to repay when they get out of school, that's their contribution towards helping pay for their education. These are low interest loans, it's fixed interest, and some of them don't have interest while the students are in school. A subsidized loan has no interest. So of the 2 types, sub and unsub, the sub is more favorable. So even if you could do without the unsub portion, that will help save money for your students. So loans are available to the student that way. The last piece of need-based aid is work study, and I will just mention this because families, this generally does not help the bottom line. I will just tell you that. Work study is an opportunity for students to get a job on campus, work over 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks they get a paycheck. If that student has a balance and they get their paycheck and they want to make a payment towards their balance, they're welcome to do that. That is absolutely their choice. But if they've got this money in hand and they need to buy a book or put gas in their car or get a pizza, whatever it is, then they've got those dollars themselves. So at Capital, we will show a student everything that they're eligible for. So if they file a FAFSA, not only will they see their scholarships from the university, but they'll also see federal loans, guaranteed those will be there. And if they are eligible for those other grant programs or federal work study, we will include that on their award. We never use the work study dollars to help calculate your out-of-pocket costs. We don't know who's going to get a job, and we don't know of those who are going to make payments. So it might still be part of their aid award, but it doesn't help pay the bottom line. I think there's a lot of value in federal work study. Getting a student to work on campus is a great opportunity. They have a department right there immediately as a support group for them. You have to manage your time better. There's some real positive things, and it gives them pocket money, which is great, but it doesn't always help the bottom line. God bless you. Another thing that I wanted to discuss with you, and this can be confusing. Of all the things in the financial aid world, one, the acronyms are crazy. They have them for everything. But this one I think is even more so confusing. An EFC, or an expected family contribution. If I didn't have any exposure to financial aid and I heard expected family contribution, EFC, I would think, so that's what I have to come up with in order to allow my student to go to school. It's my contribution. That's not what it means. It is a calculation. I will tell you right now, it is a calculation. Every school across the country, regardless of where your student is looking at, uses that same EFC value to calculate the need. So the schools will provide a budget for your student. If your student is planning to stay at home and go to the community college, the budget for that student will be tuition at that community college with books, costs for books and travel back and forth, living at home. If your student is looking at a four-year state school and they choose to live on campus, that budget will include tuition at that four-year institution, their meal plan, their residence hall cost, their books, some living expenses, that kind of thing. So their budget's going to be much higher. Now you look at a community college budget and a four-year institution budget. Well, this one's going to be a lot higher. The same EFC is used to determine need, so you subtract that same value. The need is going to be much higher at the four-year institution than it would be at the community college. So every school is going to have their own cost of attendance or budget, but the EFC remains the same for every school. So it is not necessarily what you have to pay. For some students, if they had a 0 EFC, given the maximum that they're eligible for through the federal and state options, it may pay for all of their costs. It absolutely may, but it might not. So I have had conversations with students who come in near tears. They can't get registered for the next semester. They just are confused about their bill. We go through that. I pull up their financial aid award. We go through each piece. And I look at them and I say, I'm sorry, I don't know where the confusion is. I can see all of your financial aid. I can see your cost. You have this balance. Where is the confusion? And with tears in their eyes, they said, but the FAFSA told me I don't have to pay anything. I pay nothing. They had a 0 EFC. They got the maximum, but it didn't necessarily cover all of their costs. So there is a difference there. And I just don't want anybody, again, no surprises. I don't want you to think, okay, that's what we have to come up with. It may or may not be that cost. So just keep that in mind. All right. Let's look at the FAFSA process itself. This is step 5 there, that free application. The nice thing is, you've got over a year before you even have to think about completing this process. There have been some changes with the Federal Department of Ed and specifically to the FAFSA. This academic year, the 2017 academic year, was the first year that they changed what information was required on the FAFSA and when that information could be submitted. So in the past, if you have older students or you yourself have been through college recently, you may have remembered that you file a FAFSA, it opens January 1, and you use the last year's tax information to complete the process. Now, the FAFSA will actually open October 1. And instead of using 1 year back tax information, we use 2 years back. That means nobody has to guess or wait or estimate what their information is. Your tax information should already be completed. So on the chart that I provided on this buff piece of paper, you can kind of go through and see. As juniors, next October, your juniors actually will be able to file the 2019 FAFSA, which seems really strange to say out loud. But a 2019 FAFSA, you will be using 2017 tax information in order to complete that. So and again, here's the thing. Just because the FAFSA opens October 1 doesn't mean you have to file it on the first day. Notice how long that window is. You have a really long time in order to get that FAFSA completed. Now, for seniors, and again, we're talking a year ahead,
for seniors, it's nice to have it done earlier so that you can get those financial aid awards. And you can get them side by side, and you can have all the aid presented to you, so you can be making choices that really compare apples to apples, instead of having to wait and think, well, I don't have this piece of information now, so I've got to wait until longer. The decision date for seniors is May 1. So if you can actually get your FAFSA filed in October, November, even December, that's not a problem, because you don't have to make a decision until May 1. So you've got plenty of time to get that information out there. The nice thing about getting that FAFSA file is if your tax information is complete, there's actually a really great tool within the application, the FAFSA application. When you get to that tax piece, you can link, if you filed your taxes and they have been processed, you can link with the IRS and actually pull your data directly from the IRS website, and it populates onto the FAFSA application. The right numbers into the right questions. There's no guesswork. It is great. That is one of the best tools that they have come up with. So by using this data retrieval tool, you know you have accurate information in those right spots. What else? Another piece that I like about this is, out of all the FAFSAs that are submitted across the country, every year, 1/3 of them is randomly selected for a process called verification. And it's basically the Fed's quality control process. They select these FAFSAs. The schools that you indicate, your students indicate that they want to have the FAFSA information. Each one of those schools will contact you and say, guess what, your FAFSA's been selected for verification. We need to verify that what was put on the FAFSA application is accurate. One of the best ways to do that is if you've transferred this data, we, as financial aid offices, we do not need to collect any tax information. If you've transferred it and you haven't changed any of the numbers, we know it's accurate. So for us, all it is a one-page worksheet. You fill it out, 5 minutes, sign it, and you turn it back in, and it's done. So that is a really nice benefit of using this data retrieval tool. Another thing that's great on the FAFSA right now is they have Skip Logic, which is, or Smart Logic, I guess it's called both. As you answer questions, depending on your answers, it will eliminate questions that don't matter anymore. So you can, for instance, as students, 2017, if you haven't worked and you know you're not going to file taxes in 2017, when you start your FAFSA application, you can simply check off, will not file or did not file. So none of those tax questions even populate for the student. They just completely are gone. So it generally takes about 20 minutes to go online and complete a FAFSA, and I am sure that Call to College will have an event to help with filing FAFSAs. Actually, 2, I'm told. So if you want, you can certainly wait and have that done. Otherwise, you can jump right in. 20 minutes later, it could be done and over with. So it is not a hard thing. I guarantee if you have your taxes completed by someone else, if you have a tax preparer, an accountant, or someone to do that, they will probably ask you, don't you have a student about that age that needs to be going to college, and wouldn't you like me to file your FAFSA for you? And I'm sure they would do a great job and it would be fine, but they will charge you for that. So don't pay for it. It's too easy to do now, and there are too many benefits of just using those tools. You don't need to have anyone do it for you.
The student needs to have their own login, is that correct? So the parent and the student, is that correct?
Yes, that is absolutely right. On this filing piece, the Federal Department of Ed has actually changed that a little bit as well. You now, and in the past you had a 4-digit PIN number, and a lot of times we just called it that FAFSA number, the FAFSA PIN number. Now you have a username and a password. The username and password is associated with the student or parent's last name, date of birth, and social security number. So it has to be unique to each individual. If you have multiple children that will be or going to college, I had to file a FAFSA for both of my children even though they were in school at the same time. Each one had to have their own username and password, and I needed to have a username and password. It becomes the electronic signature on this document. So yes, that is something that today you could go out and do. You could create these passwords now, the username and password. They do not expire, they don't cost anything. You do have to create an account, basically an account to get them, to set them up. You have to come up with 5 challenge questions, 2 of which come from a list of their choosing. You know, they give you a choice of questions. 2 of them you create yourself, and just a word of warning, do not let your student choose, what is my favorite color or what is my favorite food? Because I guarantee you, next month, let alone 5 years from now, they're not going to remember what they put. So if you can come up with a question that truly has one answer, and one word is best. So great grandma Marcy's middle name would be perfect, because she only had one middle name more than likely. So something like that. But you have to come up with those questions on your own, and then you have a number, an actual date. For those of us who are older, we have significant dates in our lives, whether it's an anniversary of some sort or that. You can't use your birthday. So that's something that for students it's a little harder. But they have this year just recently added a component where you can add a phone number so that if you need to reset your username or password, you actually get a text security number that you can put in and then continue the process. You can link a email address to your username and password. It has to be unique again for each one of the people who are getting their username and password, but that can be very handy because if a student has a email address that they've always used, they can use that in place of a username, and then as long as they remember their password, they're good to go. So good things there, and again, you could do that now. It's something that you could go ahead and get done. Just write down the answers, please, and make sure that your student knows what they are. Okay, on the back side, I gave you a few questions that I thought would be good to keep in mind as you're going through this search, as you're looking online, or as you're going on those visits. Ask about whether or not a FAFSA is required, how the scholarships are renewable. Are there any other opportunities to continue to receive scholarships above and beyond what you're initially offered? I mentioned, please don't pay to have your FAFSA done. It's just too easy to get it done now. Also, because of using this change of using 2 years back tax information, if there has been a significant change in your finances, for instance, our current students, for 2017 FAFSA using 2015 tax information, sometimes those two finance years did not equate. They just aren't the same. So you can complete what's called special circumstances. You do have to go through the verification process first. That's mandatory. And then you can provide additional documentation that may change that EFC number. The lower that EFC number is, the greater possibility for federal and state aid for your student, and in some cases, more aid from the school itself. So don't be afraid to talk to somebody about that. Again, right now, you probably don't need to worry about that, but it is something to think about as you go through this process and your students are moving into that selection of schools. Talk specifically to the financial aid office. They would be happy to answer any questions. I would more than likely like to have that conversation with the family personally so that I can hear what their situation is and tell them whether or not it's going to make a difference. For a lot of seniors, when they graduate from high school or their 18th birthday, families can lose child support. So that's real money for families. That's income that's being lost. That is a special circumstance. So that's something that we can definitely consider. Other schools will do the same thing. So they will be happy to talk to you about those special circumstances. I already mentioned about going out and looking for those scholarships now. Students, I will tell you, we get money at Capital for students on behalf of Kohl's, multi-$1,000 scholarship from Kohl's. Burger King, KFC, White Castle gives a really good scholarship. Chipotle, if you work for Chipotle for a year, they will give you tuition reimbursement, as well as Giant Eagle. So there are companies right here in your community that will help support you in your education. So be thinking about that as you're moving through this process. But again, the nice thing is right now, don't be afraid to look at any school, because until you have that award in front of you, you don't know what kinds of scholarships the school will offer you, what kind of information you'll get from your FAFSA. I will tell you though, on your resource page, there are two things I'll point out. One is a net price calculator. Every school institution, college, university, institutional website is required to have a net price calculator, which means you can go on as a student, put in some information which is very similar to what the FAFSA will ask, and it will tell you what you may be eligible for at the end of that. Some of the schools tailor that net price calculator to their own institution. So they will ask questions like, what is your current GPA? What score did you get on the ACT or the SAT? How many people live in the household? And after you answer those questions, not only does it give you federal aid eligibility, but it will also tell you what the institution could give you as scholarships or grants. So there's a lot of information that you can get right from the websites to kind of have an idea. You can also then go back in, just like bumping up your score or strengthening your GPA. If you change those numbers, you can see how the money at the end could potentially change. As I said, this is a great time. As juniors, you're in a great position to be able to make a difference if you set that as a goal and kind of bump that up, and it translates into real dollars. So I guess another thing that I will just reinforce, please do not hesitate to call an office, a financial aid office, if you have questions. As you're going through this process, and especially next year, the financial aid people in every school that I have met all have the same goal, to help your students. So please ask the questions. We would much rather you ask them than be worried about the answer or not know how to submit documentation or move forward in a process. So please contact them. But other than that, I will be hanging around too, so if you have questions. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Molly. I said I love it when Molly comes. And what that last bit at the end, what she said, is so important to understand because, like she mentioned, the FAFSA is a formula. It's a calculation. You put numbers in and it spits a number out. It doesn't understand special circumstances. That's where the financial aid counselor comes in. Their role in this whole process is to put the human element back into it. All right? There's this feeling that financial aid counselors are these trolls that are hiding away, squirreling away the money and refusing to give it out to people. And so I love it when Molly comes because she kind of demonstrates that financial aid people are not just trolls. They are there.
Well, thank you.
They're lovely people. They're there to help you with this process. They are friendly. They will answer questions. They will help you if you don't understand something. Okay? So we're here for that too, but if you can't get a hold of us, you can certainly go to any financial aid counselor, really at any college, and ask your most basic questions, and they will be happy to answer. Okay? And I'm going to reiterate something else too. She mentioned, don't pay somebody to file your FAFSA. Molly has to be a little bit more diplomatic about it and say, I'm sure they would do a great job filing your FAFSA. I don't. I'm not so sure that they're going to do a great job filing your FAFSA for you. Okay? I will tell you that we will have our FAFSA workshops. We will do them for free. We will bring in financial aid administrators from OSU Newark and COTC. I will be there. I worked in the financial aid office at Denison for 8 years, so I kind of consider myself to be a FAFSA expert. I will say that my personal best, my personal record for helping somebody file their FAFSA from log in to log out, 7.5 minutes. I beat my time from last year. 7.5 minutes from log in to log out. Now, granted, this student was a single parent and had already done their taxes, so that we were able to use the IRS data retrieval tool, and they had their FSA ID and everything together. But there's this notion, I think back to when I was in high school getting ready to go off to college and I had to fill out the FAFSA. It was a 10-page paper pencil form. 10-page. Worksheets, worksheet A, B, and C. These are no longer the truth anymore, okay? The FAFSA does not have to be hard. Get help filing the FAFSA, even if you think you got it. Get help. We will do 2 FAFSA workshops during your senior year. And I'll encourage you, you could go out now and create your FSA ID and password if you want to. In my experience, actually creating the FSA ID and password is more complicated than filing the FAFSA itself. So I will encourage you to come in on those nights. We will help you create create your FSA ID and password, we will even provide you a little form where you can write down all the little things you're supposed to write down. And then we'll help you file your FAFSA. We will probably get you in and out in about 25 minutes. Okay? So, be prepared for that. That's coming down the pipe. All right? And then I also want to talk a little bit more about what a call to college is going to do for your students during their senior year. Molly mentioned it's important when you're doing your applications to start wide, right, and narrow it down. We think that's fantastic advice. We would love to see our students apply to at least 3 to 5 colleges. I was a first-generation college student. I made a lot of mistakes when I went through my college process. I applied to one school. I got into that one school, and that's the one school that I attended. It worked out for me, but we would love to see our students do differently. We would love to see a range of schools. Some schools that are reach schools academically, some schools that are a sure lock academically. Some schools that may feel like a reach school financially, and one that's a safety school financially. We would love to see that. Because you never know what a school is going to be able to offer you until you've done the application and filed the FAFSA. So what we would love to see happen during the senior years for your students to apply to a range of schools and bring to us all of their financial aid packages. We'll lay them all out side by side, and we'll do an analysis of every financial aid package and help you figure out what is going to be your bottom line number at each school. What is going to be, once you've factored in all of the aid, how much do you have to write that check for Johnny to go to OSU? How much to go to Muscatine? How much to go, to Oberlin? We'll help you figure those things out. And then you and Johnny can sit down and have what I like to call the kitchen table conversation and decide what's going to be the best fit for your family, financially and academically. Does that make sense? Yeah. Excellent. And then the final piece of that process is something that I kind of like to brag about. A call to college is, I was a recipient, and I was very fortunate to be. And it's something that we kind of keep as the feather in our cap, is we have our last dollar grant. We give out free money to Newark High School students who demonstrate financial need. When I was a student, it was a $500 grant. I was the first year who was allowed to have it for multiple years. So I got $500 for 4 years. That was $2,000. For me, that was fantastic. It helped me pay for books, and it helped me with a lot of different things. We now offer the last dollar grant as a $1,000 grant, renewable for 4 years. So Newark High School students can have up to $4,000 of free money from a call to college to help them pay for school. This year, we have, for the 2017-18 academic year, we have awarded over $205,000 to about 207 Newark High School alumni. We love giving out this money to our students, and we will want you and your student to apply for this money and reapply for this money. And so you will hear me say that not just this year, but next year when we do our meeting for seniors and their parents. Okay? Now I'm sure with everything that Molly shared and everything that Mr. Coble shared and everything that I've discussed about a call to college, that there are some questions. And I know that people get timid when they're thinking about, well, I have this question, but it's really just my question. I promise you, if you think it's a question for you, there is somebody else sitting in this room that has the exact same question. Yes?
How many times can you take the ACT? Is there a limit?
There is not a limit on the number of times a student can take the ACT. We believe that the more you take it, the better your score gets, to a point. So we feel like once you've hit about your third try, you've probably plateaued. that's probably about as high as you're going to go. Okay. So we will encourage students to take it a couple of times. Again, we will do our practice test in January, and then in March, the state will pay for the ACT, and the students will come here to Newark High School to take that test. For this year, we've actually, I'm in the process of kind of working out all the details, but we are going to pay for seniors, so this year's seniors at Newark High School, we are offering them an opportunity to take a free ACT on us. So those students are right now just signing up to take the October ACT on us. So we plan to continue that for your students when they hit their senior year. So that should be not just a practice test, but 2 full-length official ACTs that your students will be able to take for free. That's about a $63 value per test. Yes?
Okay, old lady here. Applying to colleges, there was an application fee.
Yes.
Now there's Common App.
Yes.
What are we looking at application-wise monetarily?
That's a very good question. I'm so glad you asked because it gives me the opportunity to bring up something else we will be doing for your seniors in the senior year. So yes, colleges charge money for you to apply. Usually anywhere from $35 to about $60 or even $75 per application, which I know sounds like a lot of money, and it is. Okay? But one event that we do for seniors, we call it College Application Blitz. It's an exciting night here at the high school. It feels like a college fair because we bring college admissions counselors from all across the state of Ohio here to Newark High School, and we set them up over in the media center. They get a table, they get a laptop computer, they set up their little displays, and then students from Newark High School will come into our College Application Blitz. They will be able to sit down at those computers and complete their applications right there on the spot with the college admissions counselors, especially if they have any questions. And many of the admissions counselors who come there that night will waive the application fees for students who apply that night. Okay? So we strongly encourage students to come to our College Application Blitz and get their application fees waived and get their applications done. That makes it a whole lot easier to get your 3 to 5 applications done if you can get many of those or most of those, even all of those, with no fees.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yes.
Mr. Underhill? There is also the possibility for students that qualify under certain economic circumstances for them to submit an application fee waiver. Generally, that's when a student qualifies for free or reduced lunch. The student school counselor can assist with that, fill out a form documenting that, and submit it to the school, and most schools will honor that and waive the application fee.
All right. So yes, so College Application Blitz, fees waived that night. Application fee waivers are also available if you demonstrate certain financial need. Okay. Other questions? I know there's more. Yes.
For the Kiwanis College Fair, do you know what the hours are that they're hosting? Because there's a mentorship meeting, some of the kids can't go to that, so can we get them there if I could personally take them before that day shuts down?
So on the night of the college the day of the college application, I'm sorry, the Kiwanis College Fair, they do 2 rounds. They do one during the day, and I believe they do one in the evening. I'm not sure what all the hours are on that, but you should be able to go to the Columbus Kiwanis website and look up their college fair and find the hours for their events. Mr. Cole, do you have any idea?
I don't know offhand the exact hours on that.
Okay. Do you know any more information about the mentorship meeting?
Is that September 25th?
It is September 25th.
It's pretty much all day.
Okay.
It's like 8 a.m. to 2
2.
p.m. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's exactly the same time that we're going on the Kiwanis College Fair. All right, so sometimes things conflict, and if you feel the mentorship is a more important event for your student, then certainly they'll want to stay for that. Yeah. What else? Other questions? I know there's more. Yes.
Are there any merit-based criteria for the FAFSA based on a student's academic performance, or is it strictly financial status of your family?
Okay. So the FAFSA is, like you said, it is just a formula. It's a form, you plug numbers in, and it spits out that EFC on the backside. And so the way colleges then use that, they take their total cost of attendance, right? Tuition, fees, room, board, books, supplies, miscellaneous expenses. I like to say everything from tuition to toothpaste, right? All of that stuff, the cost of being a student becomes the budget, the cost of attendance. So you take that cost of attendance, you subtract the EFC, and the result is the need. And the game at that point is for the college to try to meet as much of that need as they can with the resources they have available, which might mean Pell Grants, Ohio College Opportunity Grants, federal SEOG. It might mean subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans, federal work study. It might also mean college scholarships from the college. It might mean need-based grants from the college. And how colleges give out their own money can seem like a mystery, right? Because every college is going to have their own way of calculating how they give out their own money. Many of those determining factors are going to include things like GPA, ACT scores, athletic prowess. You might even see leadership awards. So if your student is on student council or does a lot of those activities, they may be able to receive more scholarships or grants for those types of things. Does that make sense?
Sorry.
It's okay.
What do you think about Raise.me, the micro scholarships? Is that something we should be looking into?
I think it's a fabulous idea. I think it gives students a certain encouragement for doing well. For those of you who have not heard of Raise.me, there are a number of schools across the country, mostly small private schools, who participate in Raise.me. And what they call them micro scholarships. Okay, the notion is if your student earns an A in a class and they are signed up for Raise.me, Raise.me will guarantee them a micro scholarship at one of these colleges where they're attending. And the micro scholarship is really a student observing themselves earning their merit scholarship from their college in advance. Okay, so they can, like, it used to be like if you got really good grades and a really good ACT score, you would apply to a college and hope that they would give you a merit scholarship, and then you would get your acceptance letter and it would say, congratulations, you're accepted. We're also giving you $15,000 a year. Okay. Now it's more like with Raise.me. I'm a junior in high school, I'm signed up on Raise.me, I just got an A in this AP class, I'm going to go on Raise.me and let them know. Raise.me tells me, congratulations, here is a guaranteed $1,000 towards your $15,000 scholarship that you could earn at thus and such a college. Does that make sense? So it's almost like the student can see themselves earning their merit scholarships in advance, which I think is fabulous. I think it's an excellent idea. I don't want people to get confused about it and think that these are going to be scholarships in addition to the traditional merit scholarships that students might get. It's really students seeing themselves earning those traditional merit scholarships in advance, which I think encourages them to continue doing well. Who's thinking about going up and signing up for Raise.me right now?
Well, it tracks them all 4 years, and I wondered about the practicality of it because it shows them that, but I didn't know how it translated to actual real time if they applied somewhere.
Yeah, it's not in addition to the traditional merit scholarships. It's like them watching their traditional merit scholarship grow. Okay. Okay, so there's a little less guessing about what their favorite college may be offering them. And I'm going to reiterate too what Molly said about doing the campus visits. It's the absolute best thing to do. It really is. Admissions counselors don't like to admit it, but in most cases, the student doesn't pick the school picks the student. Okay? They might feel like they're going to love going to OSU main campus. They're going to step on campus, and they're either going to love it and say, this is where I'm going, or they're going to hate it and say, I can't do this. Okay? You've got to give that a chance.
How many, if you're saying that they need to apply to 5-8 schools, how many visits on average? I mean, they've got 2 days a year. How many do we need to be planning on that they need to do between now and their senior year?
As many as you can.
That doesn't help.
I know. But honestly, I would say try to do as many as you can. And the great thing is, the 3 visits that we do not count against their limited number of excused absences.
So are we talking on average 10, 15, 20 schools?
That's probably way more than most students will do.
Okay.
Most students on average will probably end up getting in 2 to 3 campus visits. Okay? But I would love to see more. Okay? We do our visits. We do Ashland this year. Ashland last year it was Wright State. The year before that we did Muskingum, and we've done Kent State and OU. This year we're doing Ashland, and we do Denison and OSU Newark COTC. And we encourage the students to go on those even if they're not sure that's where they want to go. Even if they're pretty certain that's not where they want to go. But we say, do one of these visits on us, right? We're going to help you do it. And then you'll get a baseline for what that campus visit should be like. Then you'll know what to expect. So that when you go to Oberlin, or so that when you go to the University of Toledo, you know what to expect. You know how the day is going to flow. And you will have seen a pretty good college tour and a pretty good admissions presentation. And it'll give you a baseline. All right. Yes?
Why do you pick Ashland out of all the private schools around?
We actually had hoped to go to a different school this year, and they weren't able to fit us in. And it's really just a matter of us saying, let's pick a school we've not been to before. So generally, the way we do once a year, we do an out-of-county campus visit. So we take students a little further away than Denison or OSU Newark COTC. And we do a large public and then a small private, and then a large public and then a small private. So last year was Wright State. This year, a small private school. We had hoped to do University of Dayton, but University of Dayton was not able to accommodate us on the 7th. Ashland was. Great, we'll go there. So next year, we haven't even decided where we're going yet, but it'll be probably a large public school someplace.
I go there, so it's big to me. I was just curious as to why all of them you picked Ashland.
Yeah, I've never been there myself.
It's pretty cool.
Had I known about this wonderful dining hall and these cookies that I hear are so great, we would probably be going there every year.
What you really want to do is right down the street is go to Hawkins Market for their donuts because they've got the best donuts I've ever had.
Hawkins Market for the donuts. You think they can do a bus as a drive-through? I'm not sure they can handle all that. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe this is more a question for Mr. Vogel, but I know you're called to college and you hear a lot about the program and it's wonderful, but we don't hear a lot about military options. And so I don't know, is there, we told both of our kids to look at everything.
Sure.
Like you talk about, look at all the colleges, like we're expanding it, look at everything.
Sure.
So is there anything, any information given out there regarding military?
We don't specialize in military options. I would think that our ROTC programs here may be able to provide some information about that. And of course, recruiters are available. Really, a call to college, our mission is for students to go to college. So that's what we focus on. I don't know, maybe Mr. Koval, there will be some recruiters, I'm sure, come into the
Yeah,
building.
we have military recruiters that do come into the building. They tend to visit the lunchrooms. They also visit the ROTC classes. So certainly we're always able to put students in touch with the appropriate recruiter as needed. We also offer the ASVAB test, which quite honestly is also a helpful test for students to kind of feel out what may be some good career interest areas. But that's a test that's used for military placement, so that helps to give students good feedback. We offer that once a year. I don't believe we have the date set up. It'll probably be sometime in the winter.
Is that for seniors only then? Or-
No, it can be any grade level. I would say it tends to be upperclassmen, but it can be any grade level.
Part of our messaging is we strongly encourage students to have a plan B, right? If you're looking at colleges, we want you to have multiple options, right? If you're thinking about military, that's fantastic. Be prepared to go down that track. But just in case, also be thinking about a plan B just in case something happens. And so when students sign up to come and meet with our advisors, if they specifically say, I'm thinking about military, but I'm not 100% sure, you know, we're like, that's fine. You know, you can go ahead and continue preparing to go down the military track. But in the meantime, we would love to continue meeting with you and just answering any questions that come up, because you're going to get mail. You're going to get mail from colleges, and it might make you think about something. Maybe you want to think about doing ROTC in college, right? And if that's the case, then you need to go more along the college route. Maybe you want to think about, joining the military and then coming out and using your GI Bill to go to college. And if that's the case, at some point you're going to want to be prepared and know what to expect. We're here to help with that. Okay, so I get a lot of families who come in and have questions about their VA benefits. I certified VA benefits when I was at Denison, so I know quite a bit about the post 9/11 GI Bill. If you think you might be eligible for something like that and you want to know how it works, let me know. I can kind of answer some of those questions for you. But like I said, we really encourage students to have a plan B. Maybe military is their plan A. We think that a college option could be their plan B. And by the way, and I'll take your question in just a second. By the way, we've said college several times tonight. And I know a lot of people, when they think college, they think, 4 years, living in a residence hall, having a roommate who eats all my food. Well, that's not necessarily our definition of college. Okay, we consider college to be any education that you get after high school. Okay, so whether that's a 4-year degree, or a 2-year associate's degree at COTC, or even a certificate program like something at the C-Tech Adult Ed. We consider all of those things to be college. They all have costs to them. We want to help you find the most affordable way to pay them. So if you're sitting here and you've heard a lot about kind of 4-year colleges and college visits that don't really apply to you, we can still help you. One of the visits we'll do during the senior year, we're going to take some seniors to C-Tech to visit the adult ed programs and see if those might be a good option for them. Okay? So I want to make sure that you're aware of how we define college. Yes?
My older son was a recipient of the Last Dollar Grant last
Yay!
year. Thank you very much. How do we reapply for that? And when do we do that?
Okay, so has he not reapplied for it yet for this year?
No, he just started in August at OSUN.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure how to go about reapplying.
So we mailed an application home, at least to the address that we thought we had on file. So maybe he grabbed that out of the mailbox and stuffed it between the couch cushions or something. It's not too late to apply.
Okay.
We are still taking applications. So our application process for our Last Dollar Grant, just to kind of give you guys a heads up, we have a form that we ask you to fill out. We make it available on our website. We ask students for a copy of the Student Aid Report, which is basically a summary of all the answers that you put on the FAFSA. Okay? Or you might hear it called a SAR, S-A-R. Okay? So the application form, the SAR, a copy of the financial aid award from your college that shows all of the aid that's been offered. And then if it's a returning student or a reapplication, we ask for an unofficial transcript that shows the cumulative GPA. In order to be eligible for our last dollar grant, you have to have a 2.0 GPA. And since all of our juniors in here had us during their freshman year for Start Your Story classes, they should know how to calculate a cumulative GPA. Yes? Who can tell me how many points a C is worth? Okay, so a C is worth 2 points, right? And a B is worth 3, and an A is worth 4, right? So if we're asking you to have a 2.0 cumulative GPA, we're asking you to have bare minimum solid C's, right? Now we know that that's not the best GPA ever. It's the bare minimum, but that's what we're asking for in order to be eligible for our grant.
The Licking County Foundation is another great place to
Yes,
check
it
with.
is. Thank you for mentioning that. So during the senior year, yes, during the senior year, the Lincoln County Foundation is probably the largest single source of scholarship monies for students from Licking County. So we encourage, as a part of that senior year process, for students to apply for the Licking County Foundation. It's early now, so don't worry about doing it this year. You can't do it as a junior, but be aware of it, parents. Because they've moved the deadline in the last couple of years. So now the application for the Licking County Foundation scholarships is due in mid-January. Okay.
Of their senior year.
Of their senior year. Senior year. Yeah. You've got loads of time still. Okay, loads of time. And I know some of you are looking at me like how is that possible? But you do. You've got loads of time. We gave your students that crimson folder from us. I see one parent has brought theirs with them. Yeah? Grandparents, fantastic. But so when your student starts getting papers about college, we've encouraged them to stuff them into that folder. And we think it would be great if they brought that folder with them to their appointments in our office. So that if they have questions, between appointments, they can write them down and stuff them inside that folder. When they meet with their volunteer advisor, they can just pull out that list of questions and say, I got some questions, right? And then keep track of all the mail that comes in because there's going to be a lot. And we'll talk a little bit more at the beginning of the senior year on how to be really organized as you're going through what is like a freight train for the senior year. Okay? When I say freight train, I mean it starts slowly and builds up steam. Okay. Any other questions? Yes?
Can you repeat again? I was trying to take a couple notes when you were talking about the last dollar grant and what is required to apply for that. I know you said, the application, you have the SAR and you have basically the financial aid package. Can you tell me again what the SAR was?
A student aid report. Yeah, so, and it's a bit early for you guys to be worrying about a SAR unless you've got a delinquent older child who didn't apply for the grant yet, right?
No, he's in school right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
So the student aid report, it's a summary of all the questions and answers that the FAFSA asks. And then it also includes on it that EFC. And it's helpful for us because then we can see not only what is your EFC, that helps us to calculate your need, but I spend with every application, I spend a little bit of time looking through that SAR to try to find possible mistakes or possibilities to appeal with the financial aid counselor for a review of your special circumstances. So as I'm looking through that student aid report, if I see some kind of untaxed income that looks out of place, I might give you a call and say, hey, there's something on here that just I have to make sure that it's right, because it could mean the difference between no Pell Grant and full Pell Grant for you, right? Or I might see, here's some child support, your student is turning 18 and graduating from high school, Is it possible that this child support's going to end? Oh, it has already ended. Okay, so we need to write a letter to the financial aid office at your schools and ask them to review this, because it could mean the difference between, again, no money and more money. Okay, so that it's really, really helpful for us to have that student aid report and just make sure that there are no mistakes. I find several mistakes every year. It happens, especially if you don't come to our FAFSA workshops and get help doing it. Okay, it's something real easy to get after you filed your FAFSA and it's been processed. You just log right in, view your student aid report, and print it right off of the website. Yes?
What are those FAFSA workshops?
So our FAFSA workshops, again, they are for seniors and during the senior year. This year we're doing them one just before Thanksgiving and one just after. Our hope is to be able to catch some of those students who are home for Thanksgiving break so that they can get their FAFSAs done for their sophomore, junior, senior years of college. It makes it easier for them to reapply for our grant.
One of the schools, we thought we were discussing forms, maybe getting that in within the first 30 days of when they're open for financial aid.
It's possible. So when we have this meeting during your senior year, we will stress the importance of knowing the difference between deadlines and priority dates. Okay? Just as an example, OSU has a priority date of November 1st. Okay, November 1st for applications and FAFSAs in order to be considered for their merit scholarships. Okay, so we will encourage our seniors who are thinking about OSU to do that application prior to our college application blitz, which happens in mid-November.